Good morning, everyone. We're going to continue our devotional in the book of Nehemiah, looking at chapter 2 today. But before we get started, I want to let everyone know that we're going to be continuing our Sunday series. We finished the book of Luke, and now we're going to start the book of Acts and get into the work of the Holy Spirit in the church, which is what we've been praying for, right? Seeking God to move through His Spirit in the church. So we'll be looking at the book of Acts, and I encourage you to follow along with us on Sundays. But for now, let's get back into Nehemiah. So yesterday we looked at the person of Nehemiah. We started this devotional. Nehemiah is the man who was the cupbearer to the king. So he's at this moment in Persia, in the area of Babylon, Persia, which is today Iran and Iraq. And he is serving the king. He's the cupbearer to the king, which means he stands beside the king. So you don't get into a position like that without being an intelligent person, a leader, because you are someone that the king trusts in, but also, again, there's a phrase that Paul uses in 2 Corinthians, to suffer fools lightly or gladly, which means to put up with them. Well, if you're the king, you're not going to have people around you, if you're a smart king, that are foolish, that are ignorant. So when the king asks a question, the responses need to be discerning and wise. So the fact that Nehemiah stood before the king and served him meant Nehemiah was a leader and an intelligent person. So in chapter 1, Nehemiah is brokenhearted over the condition of Jerusalem. He's just heard that Jerusalem has been, the walls are torn down and broken down, and he is broken. He's been weeping and fasting. And then it concludes with his prayer, where after he's been praying for a certain amount of time, now he says in chapter 1, right at the end of the chapter in verse 11, give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. I was cupbearer to the king. So he's about to ask the king something. And we know that this has to have been birthed through his prayer. And what we looked at yesterday, we want to just remind you of, is that he didn't just pray, but he acted. He spent time praying. He receives a desire in his heart to go back to Jerusalem, to not just pray for Jerusalem, for the walls to be rebuilt, but to actually go back and do it. So he's going to ask that now. So let's start reading here in chapter 2. In the month of Nisan, the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought before him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you are not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart. I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire? The king said to me, what is it you want? Then I prayed to the God of heaven. So right there in the moment, you see this prayer woven through the life of Nehemiah. He's been praying and fasting. He prays at the beginning of the day before he goes into the presence of the king for the Lord to give him favor. And then right now, in the moment, he says a quick prayer. It may have only lasted a second, but he just said, Lord, give me favor. So he prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city of Judah, where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it. So here I'm thinking, first of all, Paul says we should pray without ceasing. I think this is a good example of that. Here Nehemiah is praying in his concentrated prayer times. But then here in the moment, he prays first. He doesn't just answer without praying. He looks in his heart to the God of heaven, and then he answers. So when people ask you, when people speak to you, whenever, just to be in a constant state of intercession, of fellowship with the Father, that's our go-to. Our go-to is not to just speak first and then pray about it, but to pray in the moment. And that's what we see in Nehemiah. So he prayed and he asked. So remember we said yesterday, he asked, but look at what he says. I prayed to the God of heaven and I answered the king, if it pleases the king and your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it. So he's asking, let me rebuild the city. Let me go back if it pleases you. And the fascinating thing here, again, this is a big request because the king Nehemiah obviously can't be the only cupbearer. I'm sure there might be a second one, but this is someone that is a friend to the king, and not someone that he would just be so glad to lose. If you've ever been a manager or been a part of a team or in church, or when you have good quality leaders and friends, you hate to lose them. You hate to see them go. So that part is a big request. But then it gets even bigger. Then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked, "How long will your journey take? And when will you get back?" Right? So he's okay. He knows that this is something Nehemiah wants to do, and he's willing to let him go. But he also wants to know, but I expect you back. It pleased the king to send me, so I set a time. I also said to him, if it pleases the king, now here, listen to this. If it pleases the king, may I have letters to the governors of the Trans-Euphrates, so that they will provide me safe conduct until I arrive in Judah. And may I have letters to Asaph, keeper of the royal park, so he will give me timber to make beams for the gates of the citadel, by the temple, and for the city wall, and for the residence I will occupy. And because the gracious hand of my God was on me, the king granted my request. So I went to the governors of the Trans-Euphrates and gave them the king's letters. The king had also sent army officers and cavalry with me. I just love this. He's asking big, and he keeps asking. He doesn't just say, send me, but he says, okay, if you're going to ask big. So he says, well, you know what? Give me letters to the governors and the keepers of the forest to give me the timber, everything I'm going to need, the material that I'm going to need to rebuild the wall. And then not only that, but to rebuild the place where I'm going to live and stay. So he is asking big. So now the king is not only sending him back, but the king is sending provisions. The Persian Empire is literally the one that is funding the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem. So I'll probably just cover this part today because there's so much right here. What we see here is that Nehemiah, he's not just any old dude. He's the right man for the job, right? He knows what he needs to do. He has the wisdom. He's not just some guy off the street, who wants to do this but has no idea what he's doing. He is a leader. He knows what it takes. He sits next to the king, and the king's been serving for 20 years. We're not sure how long. It doesn't say right here how long he's been serving the king. But you don't stand and serve a king who's reigned for that long and not learn what it means to lead and how to lead and to be able to advise that king. So Nehemiah is the right guy. But here's what I want you to see and what I'm seeing. That Nehemiah didn't just fall into that place, right? We see this in the moment where this major event in his life is occurring. But what I want us to see is that Nehemiah got there because there were many moments where God gave him opportunities, where he had to make choices, and he chose wisely. He chose the right way. And where God saw that there's going to be a moment when I'm going to need someone standing next to the king. And when he looks through, remember, it says the eyes of the Lord roam throughout the earth to find those and show himself powerful in the hearts of those who are perfect towards him. So here you have Nehemiah, just like with David, when he found David as a little boy shepherding his father's sheep, and he calls him as a boy and says, one day, this is the boy, this is the man I'm going to make king. Well, I think it's the same thing with Nehemiah. Nehemiah, as a young man, he's growing up, and God's saying, okay, I don't need a fool. I need a wise person. I need a diligent person. I need a leader and a man of faith to be next to the king at this moment in history, this moment in time. And he's looking throughout, and he sees Nehemiah, and he puts Nehemiah on a path. He allows doors to open for him, and Nehemiah walks through those, and he's at this moment, the door opens. See, and we get to the point where we want what Nehemiah experienced. We want to be used by God in that kind of a way. But there are, what can God do? What are the choices? What are the opportunities that God has placed in our lives that we have? If we want to get to that place, we need to walk through the doors. We need to be obedient and walk through the doors that God is opening for us. Even if they're not as spectacular as going and rebuilding the walls, of seeing something great happen. You get to the moment of great things by doing the little things. someone said, if God isn't God of the big things in your life, then he isn't God at all, right? It's not just the little thing, or I'm sorry, if God's not the God of the little things, then he's not God at all. Or he's not God of the big things if he's not God of the little things. So the day-to-day, the choices, the opportunities that God opens, which may not seem that dramatic, and you may even wonder and question, God, why do you have me here? Just be faithful and pursue. So, God looks at the heart, and he saw this young man. What does God see in your heart? What does he see in my heart? And that's the challenge for me as I'm just going through this and saying, okay, I want to get there. I want to be that person that's in the right moment, the right time, that can do something incredible for the Lord. But I have to understand that I need to be faithful to him today. And the opportunity that he's given me today. Be faithful in that today and have a heart. Because God doesn't look at the outward appearance or even the intelligence as much as he looks at the heart and the desire. So how is my heart in terms of pursuing the things of God? And remember, Nehemiah didn't seek his own kingdom. He asked big, but he didn't say, Lord, give me the lottery, right? Give me the winning ticket. Give me the house I want. He said, Lord, I'm going to ask big, and all of it for your kingdom and for you. And he did ask for the materials to build his own house as well, and he got that. But the first things he's asking for is the materials to build the house of God. So let's just, again, remember, let's put God's kingdom first. Jesus said, seek first the kingdom, and the rest will be added on to you. So I just want to encourage you with those words. Let's dig into Nehemiah. Let's dig into chapter 2. Let's set our hearts on him. Let's be open to what he has given us today so we can see the greater things tomorrow. Encourage you to like and share this with others. And if you're here in the Syracuse area, always inviting you to come and join us on Sunday mornings. Connect to our Facebook page, our website, SyracuseAllianceChurch.org. Love you. See you guys tomorrow.